A significant severe weather event is happening today, and I need to be completely honest with you about what is coming, because this is shaping up to be the biggest storm yet in what has already been an extraordinarily active, severe weather season. We are stepping into a setup where the atmosphere is loaded, the ingredients are aligned, and the window for violent hail and strong tornadoes this afternoon and evening is real. We are talking about the kind of hail that destroys vehicle windshields, the kind of supercells that can produce strong and even large tornadoes, and a damaging wind threat that could produce gusts over 75 miles per hour when the line organizes tonight. And the worst part is, this is not a one-day story. After today, the severe weather pattern stays locked in with round after round of storms possible across the country heading into next week. So let us get right into the forecast, because there is a lot to cover and every detail matters today. Let me start by telling you exactly why today has my full attention and why I think this is the most significant setup we have seen so far this season. The Storm Prediction Center has issued a level 3 out of 5 enhanced risk of severe weather stretching from central Illinois, just outside of Springfield, all the way into eastern Ohio and including Indianapolis. The slight risk in yellow extends north of St. Louis into western Pennsylvania. The marginal threat covers Kansas City, Chicago, and Detroit. This setup has a wide geographic footprint, and millions of people are inside some level of risk today. This is a very large area of severe weather concern, and I want to be direct about what the primary hazards are going to be. First, and most concerning to me personally, is the hail risk. The initial discrete supercells that fire this afternoon and into the early evening hours are going to produce the risk for hail as large as baseballs and potentially even teacup-sized hail in the strongest storms. That is the kind of hail that does not just dent cars. It shatters windshields, damages roofs, strips vegetation, and causes serious injuries to anyone caught outside without shelter. I expect at least 3 or 4 supercells this afternoon, each posing a legitimate risk for very significant hail. Protect your vehicle right now if you are anywhere in the risk zone. Once those storms appear on radar moving toward you, there will not be time to pull into a garage. The second major hazard today is the damaging wind threat, and this is the one that is going to affect the most people geographically. Once those initial discrete supercells upscale into a line of thunderstorms, and they will, this setup becomes a very significant straight-line wind event. There's a hatched area on the current outlook where wind gusts exceeding 75 miles per hour are possible from at least a few storms embedded in that line. That is the kind of wind that takes down trees onto homes and produces power outages that last for days. If you have a trampoline that is not staked down or anything else that can become a projectile in 75 mile per hour winds, bring it inside before noon. The second major hazard today is the damaging wind threat, and this is the one that is going to affect the most people geographically. Once those initial discrete supercells upscale into a line of thunderstorms, and they will, this setup becomes a very significant straight-line wind event. There's a hatched area on the current outlook where wind gusts exceeding 75 miles per hour are possible from at least a few storms embedded in that line. That is the kind of wind that takes down trees onto homes and produces power outages that last for days. If you have a trampoline that is not staked down or anything else that can become a projectile in 75 mile per hour winds, bring it inside before noon. The tornado threat today is the third major hazard, and it is a conditional one that I want to explain carefully because the lake breeze is the critical variable that determines everything. Right now, there's a lake breeze setting up off Lake Michigan. The temperature difference across that boundary is remarkable. Downtown Chicago is running in the low 60s this morning. 5 miles to the west, it is in the low to mid 70s. By lunchtime, Chicago is going to be around 44 degrees, while just 5 to 10 miles south, the temperatures will be in the 80s. That is a 30 to 35 degree temperature swing in a 10-minute drive. That lake breeze is absolutely critical to how today unfolds. Here is why. If storms fire to the north of that lake breeze boundary, they are going to develop as elevated storms, meaning the storm's base will be high off the ground, the low-level moisture will be lacking, and while those storms can still produce very large hail, the tornado risk from north of lake breeze storms is low. But if storms fire to the south of that lake breeze, they move into a completely different environment. Warm, moist, juicy, low-level air with much better surface moisture and significantly better low-level wind shear. That is the environment where an isolated, strong, and potentially large tornado becomes a real possibility. The hatched, significant tornado area runs from western Illinois toward Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. If you live anywhere in that corridor, you need multiple ways to receive warnings today. Not one way, multiple. Now let me walk you through the instability and tornado parameter values because they tell a very important story about today. The instability across western Illinois into western Ohio is running around 1,500 to 2,000 joules per kilogram. For context, The Kankakee tornado event from about a week ago was working with 2,000 to 3,000 joules per kilogram, and that produced a very significant tornado. We are a hair under those values today, but that does not make today safe. We do not need maximum instability to produce a major tornado. Wind shear, not instability, is the primary driver of tornado production, and the shear environment today is very supportive. Significant tornado parameter values across the board are ranging from 1 to 5 today. For reference, this scale goes up to 10, and values above 1 in a discrete supercell environment already represent a meaningful tornado threat. Any supercell forming in northern Indiana or northwest Ohio in the warm sector south of the lake breeze will be in a genuinely favorable environment for an isolated, strong, or large tornado. That once storms get going, they are going to intensify very rapidly, and the window for people to react and get to safety could be very short. So I cannot stress enough how important it is that you are already in position and already aware of your safe place well before any of this storm activity begins to develop. And I also want to address something that I think is extremely important when we talk about a storm of this magnitude, and that is the concept of tornado emergency versus tornado warning. And when the National Weather Service issues a tornado warning, that means rotation has been detected on radar or a tornado has been spotted, and you need to take shelter immediately. But when conditions are extreme enough and a particularly dangerous tornado is occurring, they can issue what is called a tornado emergency. And a tornado emergency is reserved for the most life-threatening situations. And given the setup we are looking at with this storm, the potential for tornado emergency. Level events is very real. And if you hear those words, you need to understand that those are not issued routinely. And they mean that a situation of the utmost danger is occurring, so please take any tornado emergency with absolute seriousness. Now let me also talk about the winter side of this storm, because this system is so large and so powerful that it is not only going to bring severe weather to the south and central plains, it is also going to bring a significant and potentially historic winter storm to portions of the northern plains and upper Midwest. And we are talking about blizzard conditions in some areas, with snowfall totals that could be measured in feet rather than inches in the hardest hit locations. And the combination of very heavy snow with those extremely strong winds that I mentioned earlier is going to create whiteout blizzard conditions that will make travel not just dangerous, but potentially fatal in some areas. So if you are in the northern tier of the country from the Dakotas through Minnesota and into Wisconsin and Michigan, please understand that you are going to be facing a completely different but equally dangerous set of hazards from this same storm system. And I also want to make sure we talk about the flooding threat, because it is another major hazard with this system. And on the warm side of this storm, we are going to see extraordinarily heavy rainfall across a large portion of the Mississippi Valley and the Ohio Valley. And we are talking about rainfall totals that could reach 4 to 6 inches in a matter of hours in some locations. And when you get that kind of rainfall on ground that is already saturated from recent precipitation, you are going to see very rapid and dangerous flash flooding develop. And flash flooding is the number one weather killer in the United States on an annual basis. So please do not underestimate that threat. And remember the rule of turnaround, do not drown, because no road that is covered by water is worth trying to cross. So what do you need to do right now? And I want to give you a very clear and specific action plan here, because we are not talking about something that is days away anymore. We are talking about something that is arriving now, and the time to prepare is right now before this storm is on top of you. The first thing you need to do is identify your safe shelter location right now, whether that is an interior room on the lowest level of a sturdy, building a basement or a designated storm shelter, and make sure that every member of your household knows exactly where to go. The second thing you need to do is charge all of your electronic devices right now, because power outages are coming, and you are going to need those devices to receive warnings. And communicate the third thing is to make sure you have emergency supplies, including water, food, medications, and a flashlight. And the fourth and most important thing is to make sure you have multiple ways to receive warnings, including a weather radio with battery backup, and make sure your phone alerts are turned on and that your phone is not on do not disturb mode, because a warning that you do not hear is a warning that cannot save your life. This is a storm that history will remember, and I want you to be on the right side of that history by being prepared and taking this seriously. Please share this forecast with everyone you know who lives in the threat area, because getting this information out could literally save lives. And we will continue to bring you the very latest updates as this historic storm system continues to unfold. So stay weather aware, stay safe, and we will see you in the next forecast. And before I wrap up, I also want to stress the importance of not waiting for a warning before you take action, because with a storm this fast, the time between a warning being issued and a tornado arriving could be just a few minutes. So please, make your plan right now while you are watching this video. Make sure every person in your household knows exactly where to go, because when the sirens go off, that is not the time to figure it out. This storm demands your full respect and your full preparation.